Are you ready to rewind? Take a nostalgia-filled ride back to a simpler time. It's Acid Wash Memories, a retro pop culture celebration. And now your hosts, Joe Murata and Michael Quinn.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 101 of Acid Wash Memories, a retro pop culture celebration. Today, we're talking about the year 1998 in pop culture. My name is Joe Murata, alongside, of course, Michael Quinn. Hello there, Michael.
Howdy ho.
Howdy ho. Happy New Year.
Happy
if you're
New Year.
listening.
What a great year 1998 has been. No, I'm just
I can't wait to talk about it, though. If you're listening in real time, it's 2025 now. So Acid Wash Memories has now been around for 2 years. We started in 2023.
2 full years.
Two
Wow.
full years of
Can you
Acid
believe
Wash
it?
Memories. No, I didn't know that we'd be doing this long, but we're so thankful to have you guys aboard here, whether you've been with us since 2024 or maybe since the beginning. We sure do appreciate you, and you can follow us on Twitter at AWM Podcast and join our Facebook group. It is called Acid Wash Memories. We have 100 other episodes where, Quinn?
In the archives.
In the archives. So you find something you like. Each week it's something different. Well, almost each week. Sometimes there's breaks. That'll
Sometimes.
happen. That'll happen at our discretion, just for the record, this year.
Yeah, this is the New Year's resolution. This show happens when we say it happens.
We will be back next week. Don't worry.
Yeah.
We don't want to get you all upset off the
Right.
bat here. We will be back next week and most likely
We're
the week
casual
after.
environment around here.
We are kind of, we're a lot of things. Sometimes we're a light history. Sometimes we're a deep diving show into the nitty gritty of like television and music. This time around, to talk about the year 1998, and we may do a few of these as the year goes on.
Yes, this is definitely something I think to look forward to, because these year episodes, we've been batting around. Man, there's some years out there that are just, damn, they're real good years.
Yeah,
right?
and we figured we'd start with this one because, what's interesting is if you know anything about the two of us, we didn't meet till 1999.
Right.
But for some reason, and I don't know if it's our age, if it's just nostalgia, or if the pop culture really was that notable.
I think it's the pop culture is the like connective tissue here, right? It's like that it just was good and it had something for everyone, right? It's like no matter what you were into, there was something good in 1998.
That's kind of, exactly right, Quinn. That's what we're going to talk about, because Quinn and I independently, again, we didn't share these experiences together, but we independently both have this affinity for 98. And when we were talking about, it's really funny how this converged. We were talking about wrestling, the last episode we did, and that's right smack dab in the middle of 1998. And then other things we've talked about, and now on our wrestling show, we're getting into 1998 on the pay-per-view. We figured, it's time. Let's talk about 1998 in pop culture.
1998.
Happy 1998!
I want to be clear about what this episode is going to be. It's not light history, and it's not a deep dive. This is one of those casual ones.
Is it like by default though a light history because we're going through a history of a year?
In a way, I guess.
It's not like you're going to be telling like fables or stories
no fables.
or whatever. But
I have no fables.
At the same time, we're going to, by the end of it, we've given the history of 1998 in a way.
In a way,
right?
from a pop culture lens.
Yeah.
The way we're going to do it is we've broken it up into some categories here. Movies, TV, music, a few things. By no means is this meant to be exhaustive. In fact, I'm trying to mainly talk about things that I personally remember, but we're also going to read some things that were popular in the year 98, even if we don't have personal experience with it. We'll probably pause for a bit on some of the more significant things, but it's just going to be literally the spirit of Acid Wash Memories. It's like, here's your fucking memories, right?
That's the memories of 1998. Here you go.
Pretty much it. So let's start with movies. The biggest movie in terms of gross dollarage, if that's a word.
Not really.
Even though it came out in December 19th of 97, I think everyone associates it mainly with 1998 is, of course, Titanic.
Titanic, yeah. So, I mean, this was a biggie. This was a biggie, and it's weird. I don't remember. When did you say it came out?
December 97.
Really? Because I remember the mania of it was in like the summer of 98. Like they were still playing it in the theater.
It had such a sustained run at being the highest grossing, or at least like way in the top.
Titanic is doing big business.
I saw it multiple times. I did not. This movie is interesting because I think it had something for everyone. Like the way it was advertised is that it was like a love story, but really what it ultimately it's like a slow-moving disaster movie.
It's a lot,
and it's interesting, and it's like the effects of it. And I guess the thing about Titanic that hooked me was I thought the length was actually good in this case because the whole idea of the movie is like the world is one way when they get on the ship,
right?
But then the disaster happens and you start to see everything like break down, right?
Literally.
And like the
literally.
ship but even like society, like the people, like all the bullshit starts to move away. People are just like going for their lives.
Absolutely, it's weird. It's like a romantic drama, a period piece, a disaster film.
I feel
it's
like,
got a lot of elements.
What I feel like the love story part of it is they're just like the main characters, like these two people that fell in love while they were on the ship.
Yep.
But they're like, we're seeing it through their lens, and what's perfect about that movie is that one comes from the lower class and one comes from the higher class.
Yeah.
So you're seeing them like navigate this whole fucking situation, right?
Absolutely right. And I think the acting is very good. Do you find this movie overrated, or do you think it is like deserving of its accolades?
Here's the thing: is whenever I go back to Titanic, sometimes I see it for whatever reason on cable.
Yeah,
whatever.
I've seen it on cable and
I
stuff.
gotta say, back in the day, I thought, this is just a popcorn movie, and but I love it, right? But as I got older, I realized this is just a good movie.
I think
it's
it is
just
too.
really watchable.
I think it's very good.
It's
Yeah,
very watchable.
It's watchable. Some other popular ones, just to name drop them, is Armageddon was a big one in '98.
Right. Yep.
Saving Private Ryan was a huge one in '98.
I mean, that's another one where it was a big monumental thing, and it would affect other things. The beach scene.
Yes.
The landing. Yeah, the D-Day landing.
Normandy, right?
Normandy landing. That was like when the special effects caught up to what the stories were from like the veterans.
It's a really well told story.
Right.
It's a really well done film.
And
I'm not the biggest fan of it, but it's really good.
And it would lead to shows like Band of Brothers,
exactly.
and games like Medal of Honor and Call of Duty.
Call of Duty.
The whole idea of they land, but then it's not over. Then they got to go into the interior, into Germany, and it's like, it kind of follows them along the way in these very intense firefights with some drama in between, with people would tell their stories, or maybe you lose a character along the way because it's a war.
Yeah, you ever heard of them?
Yeah, just an actually awesome movie.
It really is.
Another movie that's very good, and you can go back and watch it and damn, that's just a good movie.
Who directed that? Was it Ron Howard? No,
I don't remember.
Why do I think it's Ron Howard?
It.
I'm going to find out though, because I need to know right now. Live Spielberg.
There
you go. Remember when Ross was in Band of Brothers? Ross.
He is.
This man had 200 prophylactic kits in his footlocker.
On the comedy end of things, one of the highest grossing films of 1998 is an awesome one. There's Something About Mary.
There's Something About Mary, yeah.
Ben Stiller, Cameron Diaz.
It's funny, of the Ben Stiller comedies and stuff, this was actually not my favorite or anything.
It's not my favorite, no,
Yeah.
but I think it's really well done.
Yeah, it was very popular. I remember in '98, this was like the big funny of the year. Like everyone was talking about this one.
Well, remember the hair? When
Yeah,
she gets
she gets the hair.
Remember the hair?
Is that a hair gel?
Yeah.
Great. I could use
No, you don't have to. You don't.
I just ran out.
Inexplicably, I'm sorry. Maybe you'll like this, Quinn. We've never talked about this film. I hate it. The Waterboy.
The Waterboy. Yeah, the problem with this is this is late Adam Sandler.
Yeah, it's like...
Although 98, I believe, doesn't it have Big Daddy as well?
That's 99.
Oh, it's 99. Okay.
Yeah, that's good.
This is a weird divergence.
I don't like this one.
Because it was weird, because Adam Sandler wasn't done making his classics yet. He just had this stupid one in between.
I never cared for this one. This is where... Isn't this the You Can Do It or whatever? And that people said that way too much.
You can do it! I just hated it. I didn't like it at the time. I just was like, this is stupid. I actually was almost surprised he recovered with Big Daddy in the next year. I was like, damn, Big Daddy's awesome. This is classic Adam Sandler.
And then he did Little Nicky, which
things were getting spotty. It
was a little spotty. Another one, I didn't see this one, so I have no opinion on it, but it was one of the highest grossing films of '98. Is Dr. Dolittle. Did you see that one?
This was the remake.
Yeah.
I remember because as a kid, I really liked the 1960s one or whatever.
Saw that either.
They would always show it for kids or whatever.
Yeah. Blind spot
and I remember
for me.
being this was just kind of disappointing.
I didn't see it.
I'll go back and watch the 1960s one.
Really?
Yeah.
Did you see another highest grossing? Did you see Deep Impact?
Deep Impact.
I
was
did not.
About the asteroid or whatever.
Yeah, it's got there's a Morgan Freeman.
I think I saw this. So the problem
Robert
with
Duvall.
the one thing in the late 90s especially, there was a lot of especially with Armageddon, there was a lot of movies about what would happen if an asteroid hit Earth.
If it can't be stopped, all life on Earth will perish.
There was a weird point in the late 90s where also on the History Channel they were kind of maybe this was a recent discovery in the 80s or 90s that the dinosaurs died of an asteroid. So everyone's like, we got to make a movie. What if it happened to people, right? Like, this was like a big topic of conversation for whatever reason.
I didn't see it, though, so I don't know much about it. But I do know this one. This was another big grosser in 98. Rush Hour. The first one.
Oh my God, I love Rush Hour.
Chris Tucker, Jackie Chan, really fun buddy comedy shit.
I like Rush Hour 2 better.
Yeah, I think I might also.
Yeah, it's almost like Rush Hour 1 is like the template. Right, it's like this is what it is, but Rush Hour 2 is like the perfection, right? It's like we figure this is what we should do.
It's actually like a good example of like a sequel done right. Rush Hour 2.
What's interesting about it is with Rush Hour, if you go back and watch the older Jackie Chan movies, they are like this action movie with comedy. They're super fun like that, even with the, having the bloopers at the end. That's in the old Jackie Chan movies. Like, he would always show the bloopers at the end of all his movies.
Yeah, he had a sense of humor about what he was doing.
And so this was kind of like, I felt like truly bringing it to America because they had all these other Jackie Chan movies where they like renamed them and they were like, what the fuck is this shit?
They kind of did the Bruce Lee treatment to him a little bit.
But this was like, let's put him with Chris Tucker. Let's put him in a truly like made in for Western audiences movie. No translation, nothing. And it was like, this is awesome.
The fastest hands in the East.
Wow!
Meet the biggest mouth in the West.
Just received a threat on the building. We ask you please exit the building. Do not panic. Did you hear what I just said? Get the hell out of here. It's a bomb in the building.
And then another huge one of 1998, which I've only seen once, really good, very notable, is Good Will Hunting.
Good Will Hunting.
Very notable film.
I had not seen that for years until like a year ago.
Really? I think you told me when you watched it.
And I came out of it was like, man, I wish I saw this at the time. Like, it was just something I missed. And it was so good.
My wife used to fart when she was nervous. She had all sorts of wonderful little idiosyncrasies. She used to fart in her sleep. I'm sorry I shared that with you. One night it was so loud it woke the dog up. She woke up and got like, oh, was that you? I said, yeah, I didn't have the heart to tell her. Oh, God. She woke herself up.
And it's worth mentioning here before anyone writes an angry letter. It did come out in December of 97, but it was like its heart, its prime, was 98.
One thing I noticed even back this far back is like if movies came out in December, they were not widely distributed for like a month later.
Yeah.
Like it's like they really didn't get like Titanic is the perfect example. It's like they were still showing it in the summer.
Yeah, they were.
That's how long the theatrical release was.
It was in the theaters forever.
Yeah.
Now these aren't necessarily the highest grossing, but just notable films. I want to run them down real quick. Lethal Weapon 4.
Right.
That's one with Chris Rock.
I don't like the later ones as much.
I understand. I like this one a real lot. I thought it was underrated at the time. The Truman Show. Jim Carrey. Excellent film.
Well, there's the funny. Who are you talking to?
Who the hell are you talking to?
All natural cocoa beans from the upper slopes of Mountain Nicaragua. No artificial sweeteners.
What the hell are you talking about? Who are you talking to?
Another one that I really like, speaking of Adam Sandler, this is a little bit earlier in 98 than The Waterboy. The Wedding Singer.
Now that one's a classic.
That is one of my favorite Adam Sandler films.
Adam Sandler was spotty at this point. It was good movie, bad movie, good movie, bad movie, right?
That one is so much fun. What I liked about it is it came out in 98, and even in 98, for them to do a 1985 pastiche was actually novel.
So this was actually a thing that was developing like in the late 90s that I started to notice a trend. So prior to this, there was that big like 70s revival in the mid 90s where it was like everything was 70s, right?
Yeah, the Brady Bunch revival.
It was like very quickly they transitioned to like, wait a sec, people like the 80s throwback more because like Friends started doing like 80s episodes and like all sorts of stuff. So it was like the 80s and the 70s were almost competing for like the which decade nostalgia is the most popular at this point. And The Wedding Singer was one of the early 80s ones, right? Where it was covering the 80s.
I really like that movie.
Yeah.
Please get out of my Van Halen t-shirt before you jinx the band and they break up.
The first Blade came out in 1998. Wesley Snipes.
That shit was awesome.
I didn't see it.
You know what's really funny about that movie is that I didn't see that till later when I worked at the video store, but I remember watching it. I was like, damn, how did I miss this? This is fucking awesome, this movie. And like, it's just a cool action movie. And what's interesting is like, it's a Marvel property in the 90s, like before the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yep.
I feel like visually, it feels more like Batman 89. Like it's like dark and like it's like they're still like that's how we do superhero movies in this time period, right?
That's a good point.
It's more gritty.
Batman 89.
It's more gritty. It's not like humorous. Like it's
not humorous.
It's like but now the Marvel movies, there's always some humor thrown in and jokes and stuff.
Fair enough. The Parent Trap, the remake, obviously, the Lindsay Lohan one.
Some people
came out in
swear
98.
by this version of it more than the 60s one.
I've never seen the 60s one. I saw the 98 one.
I've seen both. I mean, it's the same movie, just in the 90s with Lindsay Lohan. Like it's,
I didn't love
even
it,
the same
by the
gimmick. They didn't find real. Well, actually, didn't they have real twins in the 60s one? But this one, they used the technology to have two Lindsay Lohans, if I recall.
No, it's Haley Mills as both in the 60s
it is.
one
Okay.
also. Yeah. And then I just wanted to mention this. I'm not like a huge fan. I saw it once or twice. You've Got Mail came out in 98.
This was a big movie.
Was.
This was like a huge. I remember my parents renting this and like watching it. Like they didn't even tell me they rented it. It was one of those I just kind of like horned in and was like, "What's this? It's about the internet." Like
I remember my mom making a huge fuss about this. Well, the big draw here is that it was Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan reuniting from Sleepless in Seattle.
Right.
That was the whole point. It's Nora Ephron.
Right.
You know.
But now Meg Ryan's got short hair and Tom Hanks is more later 90s Tom Hanks.
He is a little bit more later 90s.
He's got a kid.
He got a kid. Got to mention this one. It didn't do that well, by the way. It's a cult classic, technically. The Big Lebowski came out in 98.
Oh, my God. We could talk forever.
We could.
There's like a zillion good things in The Big Lebowski. So I will say this. What's so interesting about The Big Lebowski is in 98, I feel like it wasn't as big as it was later.
No, that Lebowski was not as big.
A lot of people forget this even came out in 98. It's
no one
more
cared.
like a 2000s movie because people like... That's when it got
like played on cable.
It got played on cable and movie rentals and when DVD kind of popped up and people were buying it up and it was just like this movie was like ahead of its time.
Yes.
Like it was like so fucking weird.
Surreal humor.
Like, to this day, I still don't even understand how it was greenlit. I truly don't. I've like looked in. I don't get it. I like who gave them money to make this.
It is a very bizarre movie.
Right.
One of the things I like about it is that it, for no like real reason, it takes place in 1991.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to.
It doesn't need. It's just there, and it doesn't even. There's not even like anything in it that you would be like, this is very 1990.
No.
There's nothing to like associate it. It's just because it's just for funny. Like it's just to be funny. It's just like it took place a couple of years ago or whatever. It's like okay,
what?
Like why?
And then like obviously Steve Buscemi is awesome in it.
Near the In-N-Out Burger.
Those are good burgers, Walter.
Shut the fuck up, Donnie.
John Goodman's
performance in this movie. This is the movie that made me realize, wow, John Goodman can do a lot of things.
Yeah,
like
he's an actor,
He
man.
is unbelievable in this movie. Like, he is so good.
He really is. Obviously, it ruined the Eagles for a lot of people, Quinn, but you forgive it for that. Mm-hmm. He had the sweater, the dude with the sweater.
The dude.
A lot of good stuff. Sam Elliott for no reason.
The guys who pissed on his rug.
What is this film?
The weird, like, the strange, like, dream with the bowling and the everything. And Julianne Moore just, like, being... It's just this strange ass fucking like eccentric artiste and like oh my god. And also it's got Tara Reid in it just for funsies.
That's
and
right.
Philip Seymour Hoffman as the assistant guy. There's like so many people in this movie. Like
John Turturro's in it.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
How did they make this? Like it's like again, who gave this money?
It's the Coen brothers, so I mean I'm not too surprised.
Even the cast itself is like it defies logic how they got all these people to be in this
bizarre cast.
Yeah.
And then I needed to mention this 1998 film, even though like even more of a cult classic, Dirty Work. Norm Macdonald.
God,
directed by Bob Saget.
I can't even remember what this was about.
It's horrible, and I love it. Can I just put it that way? It's also got Chris Farley in it briefly.
But wow, 1998. These are like a ton of movies only,
and that's
just
not
the movies.
Just the movies, and that's not all of them, obviously, folks. But we're going to cap it there. We'll move on to TV. The number one show in 97, 98, so going into that season, was Seinfeld. I think, of course, we know that, right? And ER took over that for the 98-99 season.
Right. Well, that was because Seinfeld
was gone.
Came to a close, yeah.
But right behind ER at number 2 was another NBC property. You want to take a stab at which NBC show?
Frasier.
Friends.
No, really?
Number 2.
Okay, I thought Frasier took the mantle because wasn't this when the transition started?
They took Seinfeld's time slot, but
they weren't more highly rated.
No,
Interesting.
Friends. And now I got to say, one day we'll talk more about Friends, but hopefully not that much. The 98-99 season of Friends is the one where it starts to fall off.
Isn't this the one where they go to England in the hat and everything?
That's the end of the previous season, yes.
Okay, because this is like that time period.
I like that season.
Like Friends had hit this like point where it was less like a weird upcoming show, and it was just like mainstream by 98.
Season 5,
it was like okay, like this is like one of the most popular shows there is.
And there's some good episodes in season 6, which is 90, or no, that's season 5 is 98. And either way,
I will say this is like the first time the Will They Won't They with Ross and Rachel started to finally get like, oh my god, like just
like end up with the Emily and all that.
Like now there's the weird wife that only lasts for like 5 minutes. Like I know
I'm not a huge fan of all that.
Yeah. But I mean, again, this like people remember these things, right? Like this, I think 98 Friends, it has this very like memorableness about it. It's just like people remember this transition going on.
Well, the England hat.
The England episode is like one of the last most memorable episodes there ever was, because it's just got a lot of bits in it. It's like really stupid, actually. Like most of it is like them wandering around and like Joey just being insane the whole time.
I love that part. I think it's also in 98 a little bit earlier when they switch apartments for a while and they do the game and all that.
The apartment switch. Yeah,
that's a great arc. That whole thing with the trivia game, love it.
What is Joey's favorite food?
Sandwiches.
Correct. Chandler was how old when he first touched a girl's breast?
14?
No, 19.
Thanks, man.
Joey had an imaginary childhood friend. His name was...
Maurice.
Correct. His profession was...
Oh, Space Cowboy.
Correct. What is Chandler Bing's job?
Oh, gosh. This has something to do with numbers. In processing. Well, and he carries a briefcase.
10 seconds. You need this or you lose the game.
It has something to do with transponding. Oh, he's a transponster. That's not even a word. Oh, no, I can get this. Oh,
Here's some shows that debuted in 98, varying degrees of quality and Quinn and I liking them, but here's some notable ones. King of Queens.
Yeah, that did debut in this, but it was not like super pop. It was like an up and coming show.
Yeah, and then it became
CBS.
Who watches CBS? Yeah. Then it became like a staple in the early mid 2000s.
So I always felt this show was actually like CBS's answer to things like Friends, because it was like a younger people show. Like it wasn't for once like some like how their programming was
like Empty Nest.
Like they had Cosby on it, not the good one. The one where he's like retired with Felicia Rashad.
I like that it's her though.
They're like old and they're not the same people.
No, but they act the same. Like he's still doing Cliff Huxtable.
Yeah,
and she's great though. I love Felicia Rashad in that. Speaking of CBS, I'm not a big fan of the show, but I wanted to mention it because The Star was a very big deal for a long time. Becker, Ted Danson's vehicle.
Yeah.
The show's very sitcom.
This is where I realized that, wow, A, Ted Danson is old.
Yeah,
and
with
B,
the gray hair.
Like, he's not even playing the same guy, like, anywhere close.
No.
Like, he's just this crotchety old man character. This is what he would be like forever.
Becker on Movies.
This is how it works. The actors talk, not the audience. That's why the seats face the screen and not each other. And another thing, don't give advice to the characters. It's a movie. They can't hear you. But I can, so shut the hell up.
Ted Danson is Becker.
Morning.
An outspoken new comedy. Premiere CBS Monday, November 2nd.
You know what started in 98 and was a huge fad for a while? It was on a long time, but it was a fad briefly. It was Celebrity Deathmatch on MTV.
Oh my God, I totally forgot about that. This show was funny back then.
It was revolutionary.
This was so hilarious. So it was like claymation and like they would have like wrestling matches, but I felt like this show is almost like what YouTube became. Like it's like very YouTube. Kind of. It's very like throwaway content. It's just like, hey, what if this guy fought this guy or whatever? Like, and it would just be like these celebrities, but as clay. Like, it was very strange.
It's really dumb, but like it was hot in 98.
Jab humor or something.
Now, I wasn't a fan of this show, but I was very much aware of it because all the girls in my grade loved it. Dawson's Creek.
Dawson's Creek. All the girls talked about Dawson's Creek. I mean, it was...
Did you watch it? You probably did.
I think I saw... I know. I didn't really. I didn't know much about it, to be quite honest.
Yeah,
with you.
I didn't either.
Maybe watch an episode or two and I don't get it. Like it's like this.
It's not for you, Quinn.
Like the thing is, even but I like soap opera type shows,
True.
and this just did not connect at all. Like I was like, I don't get it.
I understand. The most notable thing for me was the theme song "I Don't Want to Wait" by Paula Cole,
right? Yeah,
which was a huge hit at the same time.
This show though was trying to. I feel like it was trying to be like a My So-Called Life sort of clone, but on but CW, but or whatever it was back then. WB, yeah. It's just like the crappy version. You know what I mean? Like it was trying to be that, in my opinion.
Nothing has ever been My So-Called Life.
Yeah,
unfortunately,
it's more the way it was marketed.
Another one that started in '98, ran for several years, was very popular, had spin-offs, had movies. Sex and the City.
So this is weird because I don't think a lot of people realize that this was even on by this point.
Yeah,
it's this predated Sopranos by a year.
Yep.
When this came out, this was another part of the early push to you got to get HBO.
Mm-hmm.
It was this show is great.
We have sitcoms now,
right? And
which they did before they had Larry Sanders.
But what set this show apart in the early years is that it. Unlike network television, it didn't have limits. They were able to show things,
say things, yeah.
And it was kind of this women's perspective on dating in the late '90s in New York City, right? But it was no holds barred. They could say whatever they wanted, right?
And honestly, I watched a lot. I didn't have HBO growing up, but they would show it on terrestrial television in the mid-early 2000s. They would do the reruns.
Right.
I watched quite a bit of it, and I gotta say, it's a good show.
It's a good show in its early years.
Sex and the City, HBO's new comedy series starring Sarah Jessica Parker. A special premiere Saturday night at 9:45. Then watch for the regular time Sunday nights at 9.
Another sitcom that went on to have a really long life and a spinoff and a bunch of other shit, and fondly remembered, started in '98. That 70s Show.
Yes. So, again, we were talking about the 80s nostalgia, but the 70s nostalgia was just as strong during this. And I love this show.
I think it's a great show.
The first season of it was actually fun. And I do remember that this show had an appeal to people who grew up in the 70s, like my father.
Sure.
And I remember specifically the thing the show, at least in the early seasons, was most notable for was the table where they're all high and stoned, right?
Oh, yeah.
And I remember my parents thought this was the funniest thing in the world. Because it just I think it just invoked a nostalgia and a memory.
Right.
And how funny those times were. And they totally picked up and latched on. And that became what I guess the adults in the room, that was the scenes every episode they were waiting for. It was when's the table with them all
when's
stoned?
the blunt circle?
Yeah.
I think this show was wise in that it bridged the gap between our parents' generation and ours, because it was still a traditional sitcom. It didn't need to take place in the 70s.
And weirdly, they somehow made it that they dealt with things that kids in the 90s were dealing with, and even when it went long, so it went to the early 2000s, they still were keeping up. It was just in the 70s, and this is why when they did the 90s show follow up, I think it was. I watched the whole first season of that, and I was like, this is so good because it really does feel they're our age as adults now,
right?
But oh, it's just the 90s. That's it, right?
Yep.
And it's just back in time, but the same stuff, right? It's the same things.
And it was also, this show was a career launcher, obviously, for Mila Kunis, for Ashton Kutcher, and for Topher Grace, I guess, too, as well.
I can't stop this feeling.
What was that for?
Wanted to see what it was like.
What was it like?
You were there?
Get hooked on the feeling. That 70s Show premieres Sunday at 8:30, 7:30 Central on Fox.
And then another one that launched in September of 1998 became a huge deal for maybe 2 or 3 years. Total Request Live.
Oh my God. To me, this was the second era of MTV. They had weirdly fallen off with the more VJ-centric kind of thing.
Like your cousin, yeah.
Yeah. But I just mean it's
Martha, that
by
would be.
the time TRL came along, right, they were really leaning towards more reality television and stuff.
Yeah.
But TRL was this last gasp of it's about the music.
Yes.
And it was, I loved this show.
I liked it too.
I watched it 98, 99, 2000.
I watched it till around 01.
I watched every day, and I was like, who's going to be number one? Like, it was like a game show almost, right?
Yeah.
You were like, who's going to be number one, right?
Yeah.
What's going to be the best song?
And it launched Carson Daly's career, I guess.
Yeah,
I guess. Is that what he has?
But,
does he have one of those?
But I'll say, like I said, I remember it fondly for being that last hurrah for the music because you were following the charts every day. You really like knew all the songs, and I was like, this was. I wish that concept kept going because I feel like that would have been good for music in general.
Yeah,
right, because people just knew what the top songs were because of TRL.
Yeah, it was very influential, and a lot of people watched it.
And
it
then
was
all
a big
the
deal.
episodes where they would like go like spring break and summer vacation and like the Christmas in the Times Square and like all this shit. Like it was just, I was always there at like 4 whatever it was on. Like
No, I think it was after school.
I feel like I had a weird time like 4:15 or some dumb shit. Like I don't remember, but it was odd.
It was definitely after school.
Yeah.
Some finales from 1998. Obviously, Seinfeld. We all know that. Seinfeld ended in 98. But here's some other shows or series that ended their runs in 1998. The ABC Sunday Night Movie, believe it or not, which had been a fixture since '62.
They ended that then?
Yeah. Then it returned as a sporadic, not every week, movie of the week in the 2000s.
And now, an ABC premiere presentation, The Dennis Rodman Story, Bad as I Wanna Be.
A couple of animated shows ended at the same time. The first began in 93, the other began in 95, but they both ended in 98. I'm referring to Animaniacs and Pinky and the Brain.
Wow, really? They ended that?
They ended in 98.
Well, I guess cartoons back then didn't last as long, right?
A few years.
Like 2 or 3 years at most. So, That's interesting, though, because those were big cartoons in the 90s.
And that was like
the WB's cartoons specifically.
They were the WB's. You know, I made it into the beginning of both of their eras, but I honestly, around age 10, 11, I was out of my cartoon watching phase by then.
Probably around this time.
So, I don't have fond memories.
And I will say, though, I would say that this is probably the end of the Warner Brothers, like, high-quality era.
Yeah, well, when did Tiny Toons end?
Around
it was around the same time, right?
Yeah,
like,
it was like, I think Warner Brothers was just pulling the plug on all this stuff.
Yeah, I don't know if it was because of ratings or...
I don't know if it was just they had like... The thing is with cartoons, I think they probably all made 100 episodes. They're just like, we'll just put it on Cartoon Network and just endlessly make money.
Maybe.
Because it's always funny because it was always like 3 years, right? I guarantee you that was like some magic number for them to just dump it on cable.
To have enough.
Yeah.
Probably. Tiny Toons, by the way, actually was only on from 90 to 92 as new episodes. It felt like longer.
Like 3-ish years, like almost.
It felt like longer because of the reruns.
Right, again, yeah.
So there you go. And then another animated show that ended its run. I actually did like this one, but again, I didn't watch it all the time. Remember Bobby's World, the Howie Mandel show?
Oh, yeah, I love this.
That ended in 98. It started in 90.
It went that long, eh?
Yeah, 8 years.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That was a good show. It was a really well done
What's
program.
weird about that show is that it had like a zillion episodes because it was even longer, but I swear they just like never replayed that show.
I don't remember it being in reruns, personally.
Fox Kids, they guarded the shit out of their stuff that was exclusive. They didn't like ship it off to some other channel. I remember that being a weird thing about them. It was like, no, you're only ever going to watch it here and that's it. And then when it's over, it's over.
Fair. Did you know Beakman's World ended in 98? I didn't know it was still on in 98.
I actually remember this weird thing finding Beakman's World in 98 and being like, that's so weird that it's on. Yeah.
Now, this started in 92, Beakman's World, and I've always thought, and I think it's got to be, they based his hair on Kramer, right?
I don't know what they based.
They did it on purpose.
But he's a crazy scientist. Like, of course his hair is silly. What about Eraserhead, that movie?
Well, I thought Kramer was based on Eraserhead, maybe. Yeah. I don't know. 2 shows that had hopped over to CBS in 1997.
Oh, God, this.
After long runs on ABC. 1989's Family Matters and 1991's Step by Step. They both ended in 98.
This was bizarre.
Unceremoniously, by the way.
Friday, while Urkel's in the Navy, his cousin's stealing his girl.
If you her man, why she out with me tonight?
All new Family Matters. Then, when best friends feud.
Right! Did your daddy have to save you?
There's only one known cure.
Puppet therapy.
All new Step by Step.
I don't know why Miller Boyette was like, we gotta keep him going. Like, it was like, bro, it's over, dude. Like, it's like, you're on CBS now. Like, what are you even doing anymore?
They both just kind of like faded out. There was no publicity
They
or
acted
hype.
like this was going to be like, it was going to revive them for another 10 years or something.
when they signed him? Yeah, it's like CBS Block Party. It'll be
it's
great.
like, it's going to be this whole new thing. It's
We've got Mego.
It's going to go into the next millennium.
Right.
It's like,
remember that new Bronson Pinchot show, Mego, that was on with these?
Oh, God.
Can your friends do this?
Can't blow a bubble. I meant with gum.
Is this what happened to Elvis?
Bronson Pinchot and Jonathan Lipnicki. The Earth Kid and his alien nanny.
God's doing, Tom.
I beg to differ.
And all new Mego, CBS Friday.
I don't. Oh,
anything he did after Perfect Strangers, just like shit the bed immediately.
Well, okay,
don't bring up when he was Jean-Luc.
Jean-Luc was fine. He replaced Cody. I was okay with it
for a season. Yeah, he did. Just not that good.
Yeah.
I mentioned this for Ha-Has. This started in '87 and ended in '98. I don't know who was watching it. Geraldo.
Still on.
I know it feels very early.
He was like the most minor league of the talk shows. Like even below Montel and stuff. Like
I liked Montel as a kid.
Montel was
serious.
solid.
I liked Montel.
Yeah, I'm not crapping on
was
Montel.
a likable guy.
But I was like, Montel was on Channel 9 or whatever. Like
Yeah,
he wasn't
I
on the
forget what we
main
got him
one.
on.
Like him and Maury.
Fucking Maury.
Yeah.
Yeah, but honestly, Geraldo was like beneath like the Jenny Jones show to me.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
Sally Jesse. Like we're in that territory. A show that shouldn't have still been on in '98. I guess it was Grace Under Fire.
What?
That ended in '98.
I mean, how old was Quentin by that point? Was he in like a what was he like in college?
He must have been in 20 or something,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And then also Ellen ended in '98.
I know that.
Yeah.
I remember that Ellen unceremoniously ended because it was like once she came out, the ratings went down or something.
Yeah.
Like it was like really sad.
Yeah, and I liked Ellen,
Yeah.
the show.
Mhm.
I loved that show growing up. Larry Sanders Show ended in '98. That was HBO's first real sitcom
Yeah, their
hit.
first like foray.
Yep.
I feel like that was just right. I mean, that show was never meant to last more than a couple seasons.
It had 6 years. I mean, it had a good run, but
it's surprisingly 6 seasons.
Yeah.
Like I can't even believe it's that long.
I love the concept of Larry Sanders. A talk, because you know me with my late night.
No,
like, it's right up
it's
my
like
alley.
your dream show.
I love it. And then this one is one of your dream shows. This had been on for 10 years. It started in 1998. It's a CBS favorite, starring the Sprint spokeslady herself, Candice Bergen. I am, of course, talking about Murphy Brown, Quinn.
Yeah, it started in '88, right?
It started in '88, ended in '98.
I loved Murphy Brown, but
something with Corky.
Corky and the boss guy. I forget his name.
Yeah, I know. I didn't like the show, so I'm letting you have the floor here.
The problem with Murphy by this point is it was so past like its prime.
Is it because she got the short hair? Does it like coincide with her getting the short hair?
I don't even know if it's that. I just feel like the show was on for fucking ever.
10 years is a long time
Like
to
it
have a
was.
show.
It was their main prime area was like 92 or something.
Yeah.
Like during the
91, 2, 3.
where the whole point of the show is that they're like a fake CNN or something, like a political commentary like news show. Once the Clinton election, the first one was over, and then he was president again, it was like kind of like what are we doing here? Like it was like you know what I mean? Like it was like kind of like the show was like it had political humor with just life humor,
Traditional,
like,
yeah.
traditional just life humor, and like. By the time Murphy had a kid like Corky had a kid and everyone had families and shit, it was like, what are we like? What is this anymore? Like they're well past all the like life milestones. Like it just didn't make any sense that it existed anymore.
It's like when Perfect Strangers when they moved to the house.
Right. It's like you made it past the primary milestones. It's like of these characters' lives. It's just like enough.
Dump the show.
Yeah.
With only 2 more episodes left, can Murphy survive a visit from Mr. Warm?
I'm a people person.
Don Rickles.
Hey, get your hands out of your pockets. You want to go blind?
It's all part of the Monday you can't refuse on CBS.
Let's move on to music. Again, this is just glossing over some of these and some popular songs.
Obviously, we're not going to talk about wrestling, right? Because
no, we don't
just
need
did
to.
That
we just did that.
Watch the last one.
Yeah, just that we covered it all.
Yeah.
Here's some big number ones from 1998. My Heart Will Go On by Celine Dion, of course.
Well, because
song
of
was
Titanic,
everywhere.
yeah.
Getting Jiggy With It, Will Smith.
That was huge
It was a huge
in the
song.
summer, definitely.
Remember All My Life, Casey and JoJo? All my life.
Oh my
Pray
God.
for someone.
This was definitely the era of the radio. Just when they found a hit, it was on a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Like they just went ridiculous with it.
Ubiquitous, you might say. Too Close by Next was a big one. The Boy Is Mine, Brandy and Monica. That was a huge hit. One. So was this. I Don't Want to Miss a Thing, Aerosmith.
Well, again, because of the movie.
Armageddon, yeah.
It was the theme of a lot of the songs used for movies, especially in 98, were huge hits. Like, they were selling CDs up the wazoo. And I say CD because it
was CD.
CD was the primary format. Like, Napster kind of existed at this point.
I think 99.
Oh, wow. It was a year later. Okay, yeah. This was like the last hurrah for CD.
This song, too, I Don't Want to Miss a Thing, was a huge hit for Aerosmith. They didn't write it. I think most people know. There was Diane Warren, who's like a songwriter, a professional songwriter who's written tons of pop hits.
They wrote it for the movie, right?
Correct, yeah. And they did a great job with it. Steven Tyler did a great job with the singing. It's probably, if you're our age, it might be their most famous song. I mean, it's not really, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, or that, or the
Walk This Way.
Walk This Way, yeah.
Or Dream On, I think, is probably their biggest hit. But anyway, and then another one, kind of a one-hit wonder, I would think. Maybe we talked about him in the one-hit wonder episode. Bare Naked Ladies, 1 Week.
Oh, man. I remember when this fucking debuted.
Inescapable.
Well, Good Morning America was like the big coming out party. You remember this?
Is this...
It was around it.
Was
territory.
Charles Gibson back? No, he wasn't.
This was around the same time they did It.
That was a little bit later.
But the Bare Naked Ladies, like they hype the shit out of them for like a week or something, and they're like, "It's the debut. We're finally doing it." It was like on Friday. It was like a Chinese chicken, like, or whatever he says. Like, it was just ridiculous. Like everyone was all happy about it.
Well, in our next hour, we're going to have the answer to the question we've been asking all morning: how do 5 guys from suburban Toronto end up with the name Bare Naked Ladies? We will ask them that, but first we want them to play a song from their new CD called Stunt. It's called 1 Week. Ladies and gentlemen, Bare Naked Ladies.
I mean, it was very popular.
I got the CD because of this hype train on Good Morning America.
I am happy to say I did not get the CD.
Yeah.
Britney Spears, under the radar, did release Baby One More Time in the fall of 98, although she's more associated with 1999.
So this was interesting, though, is that this came out in 98, but like you said, the mania for it, because I don't know when the music video hit.
Right, but that was all the rage, man.
Well, because that was like men and women.
Yeah.
Men liked it and women liked it. Like that
she was so young, too. Isn't it weird?
I think she was like 18 years old, right?
Was she even?
I don't know.
I think she might have been 17.
Yeah. But I mean, teenagers, right?
Teenagers. She was like I'm not saying there's anything weird there.
She was like a teenage idol, right? It was like
teen idol, they call it, yes.
But
she was one of them.
It wasn't until 2 years later that she started to like sex it up even more. Remember?
Like Toxic and all that. Good Lord. That's a great song, by the way.
Well, what's the one where she's got the snake?
Slave for You? No.
Where she's just dripping wet.
I know the one you
snake.
mean. Which one is it? Is it I'm a Slave for You? No, that's later.
It might be Slave for You. I don't know, but like the whole vibe changed. But Baby One More Time was like I'm a sweet, innocent teeny bopper right now.
Oops, I Did It Again. Came after that, remember? Other popular singles, not big number ones necessarily, but popular. You heard them on the radio. Sheryl Crow had My Favorite Mistake. Remember that one? You're my favorite mistake. It's a good song. Miami by Will Smith was another big hit.
That was huge.
Yeah.
That whole Will Smith like getting jiggy with it album, it had so many hits on it.
Yeah.
Like I remember it like going on and on and on the way they released the singles for it. Like it just they kept popping out. You're like, this is from the same album? Like, it was like, what the hell?
Bienvenido a Miami. This Kiss by Faith Hill. Remember that one? As Long as You Love Me and Everybody by the Backstreet Boys was 98. Those were
Backstreet
big.
Boys was NSYNC starting to hit during this time.
Tearing Up My Heart came out in 98.
Yeah, Tearing Up My Heart. Yeah,
that was huge.
They were like, I always hated to admit it as a kid, but I was like, these are good songs. Like I would be
good
like,
singers.
I was like the NSYNC songs would like get me fucking hype for no reason. I'd be like, what? Like they would start and I'd be like, oh, this crap. And then like by the end of it, I'm like, like I'm just like humming it for like a week.
They
I'm
are
like,
earworms.
What the hell? Who made these songs?
I wonder if Diane Warren wrote it.
Yeah.
Fly Away by Lenny Kravitz was a big one in 98.
Yeah, that was a big one, definitely.
Pretty Fly for a White Guy by Offspring was all over the radio. I remember that. The Way by Fastball, their one hit that they ever had. I'm a Fastball fan,
I
by
know
the way.
you are.
Iris by Goo Goo Dolls. You know that one?
Goo Goo Dolls. Which Goo Goo Dolls song? 1998 to the extreme.
God, that's like junior high dance.
That played like your parents. You come home and they have the radio on, and you're like, "Why is this on?
Yeah,
like, why it's always fucking on?"
It's the weekend. You're in the car going to the store. You got to hear it.
It's like 6 o'clock and it's dark out, and it's like, and it's like, fuck.
I know. I'm not a huge fan of that song, but God, it was everywhere. Remember "Sex and Candy" by Marcy Playground? That was like, when we were kids, it was like, they said sex and candy in the lyrics. I want sex. Flagpole Sitta by Harvey Danger. Do you know that one?
No.
I'm going to play it for you. I'm going to just pop up my my Spotify player here.
We're going here now.
I am.
The Joe Plays Music for Me section of the episode.
Always gets rave reviews when we do that, Quinn, if we're being honest here. You know this song.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that one.
It's a catchy ass song. This is the only song they ever did that mattered.
Man, this came out in 98 too.
98.
What, this year?
That's what I'm saying,
It's crazy.
This,
yeah.
Closing Time by Semisonic came out in 98.
Which would become a staple in bars across America to this day.
Yep. Bittersweet Symphony by The Verve. You know that one, right?
Yeah. Yes.
They got sued by the Stones for that. But what a 1998 song, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I had to mention this one. This song that I'm about to mention may be the most 1998 for me.
Okay.
Torn by Natalie Imbruglia.
Play it.
Okay. Yes, sir.
That is a weird name and a weird song for you to identify with the year. But once you play it, I guarantee you, I will know what you mean. Yeah. I like the first chorus.
Yep. How 1998 is this? Maybe I can skip to the chorus here.
It's the most 19... Yeah, this is crazy. Like, this shit was on always.
This is 1998 to me.
Yeah.
When I think of music.
Along with... like that song. Yeah.
What a fucking earworm. This is a cover, too. That shouldn't write
I don't
this.
think I ever saw the music video to this. It was always on the radio. Like, I knew of it, like...
From the radio,
it existed. Like, it was like a bug gets in your house and you can't get it out. Like, it's
exactly.
like that. Like,
I thought she was so cute as like a 12-year-old, 13-year-old.
I didn't even know what she looked like.
You didn't?
Because, again, she just was on. Like,
true. Well, let me...
if you went to buy furniture, this song was on.
I know. She was cute.
I have never seen this woman in my life. Like, I'm not even kidding.
Oh, there you go. Anyway.
I just know her being on the radio constantly.
Nothing's right. I'm torn. We talked about wrestling. We're not going to do that. Let's just button it up by saying the wrestling part by saying it was really fucking popular in 1998.
It was good. It was very popular.
If
It
you
was at
missed
its
it-
most popular, period.
That it had been like in years.
But this wasn't the only sport, Joe.
No, baseball was back.
Baseball was back, baby, and it was awesome. This was like prime baseball to me. Like, this was like, holy shit, this is awesome.
Because what happened, and we talked about this in the Mark McGuire, Sammy Sosa episode.
Right.
So we won't go into too much detail, but basically what happened is when the strike hit in 94, people got very sour, and then there were the replacement players.
Mm-hmm.
And in 95, which was a shortened season because it started late, people were still very sour and like angry at baseball.
There was like potential in 1995, right? Like 1995 baseball was just like, there's new kids in town.
Right.
There's like it felt like a new generation, right? If you will.
And the Yankees winning the World Series in 96 helped.
Yes.
It did. I think it helped baseball, seriously.
It helped baseball because the problem is when you're that down, you need the most mainstream big market team. You really need them to win.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's going to get the biggest market back into the game. Right?
Absolutely. So that definitely helped. But then by the time you hit 98, and you already had buzzing the year before about McGuire, maybe Ken Griffey Jr. breaking the home run record, right? We talked about that. 98, for some reason, for me, the combination of the excellent like all-stars that there were at the time, just like
the home run chase,
the incredible pitchers, like Greg Maddux and Pedro Martinez, like Randy Johnson,
like
Roger Clemens.
It was kind of like the NBA's like 94 or 95 or whatever it was.
It was like prime NBA though.
Yeah,
from
but
a few years earlier.
For baseball though, it
But
was
for
like
baseball.
it was dope. And I don't care what anyone says. Maybe I'm controversial about this. I know. I get it. It's bad. The steroids, blah, blah, blah. But holy shit, they were hitting the home runs. Like, this is what you want.
You had Brady Anderson in 50 home runs that one year in 96, I think.
I'm all for the health of the players, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, this is their choice, though.
I don't give a shit. It was fucking fun to watch. Like, it was awesome. Like,
it was. It was so exciting in 98.
I think people are coming around to this too. That they're not saying bring back the steroids, but they're saying that shit was good.
It was really fun.
Yeah.
But not only that, that's baseball in general. If you happen to be a Yankee fan like myself, right, or Quinn,
like us, yes.
Oh, this is the
dream.
Greatest season.
They're so
in
good.
our lifetime.
What did they win? 117 games or some shit.
114. Which was a record at the time. The Mariners broke it a few years later. But not only that, they swept the series.
They would just
against the Padres.
I remember because I wasn't like day to day, but I watched, right?
Yeah.
So
me too.
I remember almost every day watching the ESPN, like the recap of the game or whatever.
Sports Center or something.
And just watching the Yankees like wreck fucking house on the recap every day.
Oh,
it was like they never lost. Like they would and it would always be like, oh, in the first inning, Yankees like we're losing big time, and then Derek Jeter did this, and then this guy did that, and blah blah blah, and it was just dink dink dink, like,
Williams.
and then they would win by like somehow 10 points.
Yeah.
And you're like, what?
Yeah,
like,
points.
10 runs. Sorry, yeah.
Tino Martinez, Darryl Strawberry had a good 98.
It was just stupid. Like they were so good.
David Wells had the perfect game.
Yeah.
A lot of good stuff.
And then by the time the playoffs hit, everyone in our area was watching. It was like you missed any of those games? Like what the fuck?
They were so good that year that the World Series to me as a Yankee fan was a foregone conclusion.
It was, but at the same time, they were like exciting good.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know what I mean? Like it was like they could come back from anything. Like you almost wanted to see them on the ropes because
just to make it more fun, right?
Because it was so much fun to watch them just like kick the shit out of these teams after they were behind.
It is true.
Like it was fun.
Another big notable thing in sports, and for the record, I'm not a huge football fan, so I have nothing really to say.
Her, what the fuck? How do you not like football? Doesn't everyone? Aren't you a goddamn American? Fucking bullshit. Where'd you go to school, huh? Asshole. Football. It's important. Didn't you know that fucking John Elway and the Broncos won the Super Bowl for the 1998 season? Huh? No, you didn't, because you're a piece of shit that doesn't watch football. Lick my hat.
But in basketball, something very notable happened. Michael Jordan retired for the second time in June of 1988. In Jordan's last game, the Bulls won the 98 playoffs. And that was kind of like the swan song for the Jordan era Bulls.
Right. And this was a big moment too, right? Like this 98 win.
The Chicago Bulls have won their 6th NBA championship, and it's their second three-peat.
I think everyone, because they knew it was the end, I feel like even as I liked basketball in the 90s.
Oh, yeah, me too.
And I wasn't a fan of the Bulls. I liked the Knicks. But
Same.
even I was like in respect of it. I was just like, this is good.
Give them the golf clap.
It was the fact that they pulled this off for the last time. They said, and it was kind of like, I felt like at the beginning of the season, they said they were going to do it and they did it.
And they
right?
did do it, yeah. I thought that was cool.
They called their shot, if you will.
They did. Let's talk a little bit about video games here. A little bit.
It's a great year for video games.
It was. It's known as one of the best. Now, for consoles, PlayStation 1 was the top seller still in 98.
Right.
It had come out in 95, by the way, but it was still...
N64 was pretty good. Now, Saturn just had already fallen down the fucking stairs by this point, so it was really a two-horse race here.
It was, yeah. Oh, in terms of home consoles, yeah. But also, the Game Boy Color was released in 98.
It's true, yeah. There was this little Game Boy revival that took place.
A world of color for each and every Game Boy game. New Game Boy Color. Escape to color.
Because now it was in color. With a big gripe, if you're a kid...
It still had no backlight. It was fucking annoying.
I know.
It pissed me off. I was like, I wanted that more than the color.
But as a kid, it was like, you see Game Boy and it's got the pea soup screen, and then Game Gear is like, look, we have color. The battery lasts 8 minutes.
And the backlight, by the way.
And they did have the backlight. So when Game Boy's finally like, no, we got color now too, you're like, all right, that's cool.
Kind of. Yeah.
The best-selling games across the board. The number one best-selling video game.
It had to be Pokemon, right?
Pokemon Red, Green, Blue, and Pikachu.
That shit hit, man.
Okay, tell me why, Quinn, because I have never once played it.
You're not a fan, and I find this funny because of First of all, you're you're like a collection nature of your, like the way you like things, right? I would have thought this would have been right up your fucking
Because you got to
alley.
catch them all.
Right.
I mean,
so the concept of this game, if you've never played it, I'm sure I'm talking to the choir here, but
I've never played it.
Okay, so basically it's like old school like Dragon Quest style RPGs, like the
Never
combat.
played that either.
So it's basically you pick an attack and you hit them, and then you hope it hits hard enough, whatever, right? But that's not really the pull, right?
What's the pull?
It's part of the pull, but it's not the full pull. The pull is this: either in this Game Boy cart, there's 150 Pokemon, 151 if you include the secret one that you had to do like Game Genie codes to get, but whatever, right? And you have like what they call the Pokédex.
Yeah, Pokédex.
And you're trying to fill it out. Like, so you're trying to get all 150, right? But the reason there's the 2, sometimes the 3 versions, depending on, but when it first came out in 98, it was only really 2. It was like red and blue. There only existed like half of them on the red one and half of them on the blue one.
Right, okay, yeah, that I knew.
And I don't even know if it was half, maybe it was like 75% on each or whatever, but there was ones exclusive to one that you couldn't get on the other, right? So then it encouraged this thing, and this is where the kind of like, I think the mania of it really was, is that you would go to camp and you would bring that Game Boy link cable that came with your Game Boy back in like 91 or whatever that you never used before.
When I went to camp, if you didn't
Right.
know.
And then you would be like, hey, do you have this Pokemon? I'll trade you for that Pokemon.
And then you put your cable.
So it was like trading cards with a video game.
So that's a novel concept.
And the other thing you could do with it too is as you acquired them, you could level them up, and then you can do battle.
And I guess it's because, I'm surmising here, because of the accessibility of this and the ease, really.
Yeah, the portability.
The portability.
That made the trading like a huge deal.
And the affordability, because it was a Game Boy game. That must be why it was the number one seller,
It just
right?
took off. Like, I couldn't, like, at first I wasn't into it, but then I saw other kids and they showed me like the trading and stuff, and I was like, this is so cool. Like, I want to do this. It just hooked me right in.
There you go. Another huge selling game. I've never played it. Again, folks, for those of you wondering why I'm bringing up so many things that I didn't do, I just have blind spots. I'm very hyper specific about certain things that I know a lot about, and there's other things where I don't know anything, and I'm not afraid to admit it. And that's why you're here. Resident Evil 2 on PlayStation. Quinn, what can you tell me about it?
Okay, so you know what's funny? I played a little bit of Resident Evil 2, the original. I played the remake a lot more.
Okay.
I love the remake, by the way. It's the best Resident Evil, period. So Resident Evil 2, the first Resident Evil was kind of like, it's the first one. It obviously was revolutionary, but it's a little weird. Like, I guess just to say it's hard to navigate. It's like, it's big on the survival, less on the action. And they kept some of that stuff in Resident Evil 2, but I think the vibe in Resident Evil 2 is way better. So the premise is, it's not in a haunted mansion this time. You're in the police station, but this is like, it's taking place during the same time as the other characters were in the first one. But now the city is overrun. The zombies have like leaked over to the city. So you have to start the game. You have to survive this like crazy onslaught. Like right as you boot this shit up, it's like, get to the fucking police station. The place is overrun.
Right,
and you're just like, you got limited. You're like, I got to get a fuck out of here, right? And you get to the police station, and then you get in the police station, and then it's like a puzzle game, but also a survival game. The game slowly unravels and shows you, like, you memorize the map of, you know, every room of the police station, right?
Right.
But then they flip it on its fucking head, and this guy, Mr. X, pops the fuck in, and he's unbeatable. You cannot beat him. Like, you literally have to run away when you see him. But it very smartly has trained you on the map by that point. Every time you see him, and you can pause, right? So every time you see him coming, it's kind of this game of pausing, and then you look at the map and you kind of route, like, okay, like, I can get around him. If I can lure him here, I can go there and then come over here to get to where I need to go next.
Okay.
And so it's just very intelligently designed and built. And then by the end of the game, it's like a roller coaster too. It's short.
Mm-hmm.
And by the end of the game, you end up underground in all these different places, and he's chasing you all the way, and it leads to like a great confrontation with him at the end, and it's just it's just perfect. It's such a really like monumental game, good design, good vibe, good story, like everything just worked in it, and it's just a classic.
Appreciate that summary there, Quinn.
Yeah.
The next one is also right up your alley. You don't have to go too deep in this one, Quinn, but Nintendo 64's Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time.
This was another classic of the time. This game was very hyped when it came out.
I remember that.
Because
I'm not a Zelda fan.
You weren't a Zelda fan,
but I remember this.
Link to the Past was the previous one. Well, technically the Game Boy one. But the previous console one, right?
Yep.
And
that was like 92.
Really, the idea here was give the Mario 64 treatment to Zelda, right?
Exactly.
And now it's in 3D. And this really, at the time, why it was a big deal is it was so big. Like it came off like it was so big.
Yeah, right.
Nowadays it's probably pretty quaint, but it was so technically impressive at the time. Interestingly enough, as a game, it's not my favorite Zelda. I still like the Super Nintendo one more.
That's Zelda 3: Link to the Past. Yeah.
But I think what this did was it's the same Light World, Dark World thing, but in but in 3D, yeah. But instead, it's the gimmick is time, right? So it's basically like you can flip-flop the time periods by playing the ocarina, but like when you flip you're a kid, so then you can't access as much stuff, but when you're an adult you can, so you have to like go into the rooms and figure, okay, like what's the best time to be a kid, what's the best time to be an adult, and
it's like real life.
But also it has Biff Tannen thing going on where essentially like the future version is shitty.
Right.
Like Ganon has fucked everything
Biff
up.
Ganon.
Yeah, Biff Ganon over here. Just like how the Dark World's the fucked up version of everything. So it's like, yeah, you're an adult, but everything sucks and like it's harder.
Like I said, just like real life.
Yeah, exactly. So it's Zelda just with a time twist instead of and in 3D, which is the big thing.
Well, I'll say this before we move on. I even remember when Mario 64 came out after a little while, and I didn't own a 64, so I had no dog in the fight, right? But after a little while, it was like, they should probably make a Zelda one of these.
Right.
They should probably make a Metroid one of these.
And they didn't.
Yeah,
forever,
I know, and there's a whole bone of contention.
Yeah.
Gran Turismo was a huge hit. Original.
Big hit then. What this brought to the table was this was truly like, we had Ridge Racer and stuff like that, but this was going for a different thing.
Yes.
So Gran Turismo was more of a simulation, right?
More like Outrun.
Yeah, not even. It's like the cars don't go very fast.
Well, fair.
So everything's realistic.
But you know what I mean. It's more in the Outrun vein.
I guess, because it's Ferrari, right?
Yeah.
But this is more going for like, you have to ascend the ranks, but every race is so hard.
Right.
Like it's so hard,
and
you have to tune your car and shit. Like it's like, this is for the purists who want to, I'm going to race the course 50 fucking times until I get like the score I need to get, right?
I didn't mean Outrun. I meant Top Gear. For Super Nintendo.
Okay, yeah, definitely
2.
more like
That's
in
what
Top
I
Gear
meant.
vein.
Yes.
But the graphics at the time too, we're in the 3D revolution, like firmly.
These graphics blew me away.
They
as a
blew
kid.
a lot of people away. Yeah, the Gran Turismo, and that's why it really became a very popular franchise. Was that, and it had a hook of like, I gotta beat this course, right? I gotta keep trying over and over again.
It had a really good hook. This came out the year before, but I just wanted to mention it was still one of the big sellers in '98. Was GoldenEye.
GoldenEye was massive, yeah.
Yep. And then, Quinn, what do you want to tell me about Metal Gear Solid? Because that was a big one.
This game is amazing. I love this game. So what's first of all interesting is that this was a revival for the Metal Gear franchise.
Correct.
Right? So they had Metal Gear on NES in like 87 or whatever the fuck. There was the Metal Gear 2 in America only, but like it wasn't made by the same people and it was crappy.
Right.
And people thought, okay, that's the end of it, right? But then there was this secret Metal Gear 2 only on like MSX in Japan in like the early 90s. Now we get to 1998 and they're like, it's coming back, baby. And the original makers, right? Now this game, Metal Gear, there's a couple things that, notably, the graphics were very good for the time and the controls were very good.
Yep.
And it's a different premise. You're sneaking around, just like the original, but in 3D. We'd never seen a game like this where you snuck around in 3D.
Yeah.
The object is not to get into combat often, only with the bosses, really. You want to kind of avoid people or get them from behind or whatever, right? The thing that this twists on, and this is a big thing, is it starts to be like a weird, like, meta thing on like video games. So like they start doing, this is where this game's claim to fame is, right? There's a infamous scene where you fight a boss. The TV, like it says like Hideo 3.
Right.
Like it's like it looks like the channel thing. You're like, what the fuck is happening? Like you're fighting this boss called Psycho Mantis. You have to like you lose to him because you can't like do anything. You're like shooting the opposite. You're like, what the fuck is going on? Like the screen is turning into a TV, like all this shit. And then you go and talk to your like you leave, you talk to the communication, they're like, put the controller in the second control port. You're like,
right, I've heard of this.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
And you do it, and then suddenly he just like goes down like nothing.
Yeah.
You like kick his ass. Before you fight him, he looks at your memory card, and if you have Konami games, he's like, oh, I see you like to play Castlevania or something. Like if you have a Castlevania save. And like it's shit like that. This is just
Very
one boss,
meta.
but there's other stuff too. There's another whole thing, and I'm going to spoil this because I don't care. You've probably played this game. It's like from 100 years ago.
It's very old.
But there's a thing where they're like, the code to call this person is on the back of the CD case, right? But in your inventory, you have an item called CD case, and it does nothing. What it really is literally on the back of the CD case, there's a tiny little picture of you calling this person with the number on it.
So good.
It's like these little things. And then the story itself just goes into batshit craziness. And it just set up for a second game that was like an all-timer. And this is just, it's a classic. It's weird. It's not what you think it is going in.
Right.
It's fantastic.
There you go. Another huge favorite game of ours will be WWF Wars. I'm kidding.
Horrible.
That came out in 98.
One of the most disappointing
Terrible.
games of 1998.
Piece of shit.
Terrible.
So let's give it a sequel the next year.
Yeah.
No, but for real, and I think this one is, if I'm not mistaken, one of your favorite games, Quinn. I could be wrong. Tekken 3?
Tekken 3, yeah.
Is that up there
It's
for you?
up there. It's not one of my favorite Tekkens, but it's definitely, to a lot of people, it's the one that like made it good.
So it's the Street Fighter 2 of Tekken?
Yeah, because like the first two were like, they were good.
Right.
But Tekken 3, the sidestepping was like not shit anymore. And there was a lot of content in this game. Like there wasn't just a fighting game.
Right.
There was also this Tekken Force mode where you could like, it was like an action game. Like
cool.
beat 'em up, like
Cool.
like Final Fight.
Like a
or
Final
something.
Fight
Yeah,
style.
like so there was a lot of content in this game, and the graphics at the time, again, it was really pushing the PlayStation's like that was like Tekken's thing back then. It was always like it looked really good.
Yep.
It looked, but this one played really good. And it was one of the first ones that played really good.
I don't know that I've ever played it, so
Yeah.
this is why Quinn is here for this video game part. We'll move on to a couple of quick hits here, just a few things to button it up.
And we probably didn't hit all the video games.
No.
We
I mean,
don't have time. But
we didn't hit all the songs. We, we missed out on a lot of songs.
It's just a sampler pack.
That's the whole point. But I wanted to mention 1998, Google made its debut inauspiciously.
That's crazy.
As a search engine at the end of the year.
At the end of the year,
At the very end of the year.
People were using like Dogpile
I
and
was
other
using Yahoo, I think.
or whatever back then.
And now you might be listening to this on a Google device or on a Chromebook or something. Then another, even though it wasn't, you'll explain it better, but this is important, even though maybe this product itself wasn't the biggest deal. The iMac came out in August 98.
So this was an important milestone for Apple.
Correct.
Because they sucked total ass in the 90s.
Yes.
Like they were really bad.
They were really bad.
And like they were like gonna go out of business.
Yep.
Right? Like this was a big deal because Steve Jobs, it got so bad that they hired Steve Jobs back.
Correct.
Like they were like, this shit is fucked up.
We
like,
need you.
We have to bring back Steve Jobs, who we fired like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Right?
It's been a while at this point.
Like it was basically like this admission of he was right all along.
Yeah, and
like,
he was.
He was absolutely correct, and he proved it with the iMac. It was like the first product, and what it did really was that computers were always confusing, and Windows, was a big hit, and it helped a big, tremendous way.
Huge.
But it was this new thing emerging, the internet. Steve Jobs capitalized what he realized was, what if we had a computer that was like, it's our usual, we'll upgrade the Mac and make it better, whatever.
Yep.
But what if we really center it on the internet, like making connectivity easier for people, and they just put this thing in and it just works. The Apple, it just works, right?
That was
you
their
boot
whole
it up
idea.
because it's like we have all the technologies. Our operating system's pretty good, and now we have this new operating system because we bought Steve Jobs' company, right? And now it's in Unix or whatever,
Exactly.
right? So, but we can make it like, people. The whole thing with the iMac, I really feel for a lot of people was that it literally was a plug and play PC. Like it just worked, which was super rare for the time, and it looked cool.
It looked cool. It was aesthetically pleasing. This also started the eye branding.
Yeah, the eye branding, which was, again, people forget this, internet. That's like what it meant, or information, or whatever
it was.
But I mean, really, a lot of people said it with the internet, right?
Yeah, and then iPod,
right?
Followed a few years later, iPhone.
They were overtly saying, like, if you want to use the internet easily, come to us.
Exactly.
Right? Is like,
and they did a good job by using I and not E, because everything else was E. E-commerce, email, right? Mm-hmm. They went with I, and I thought that was really smart.
Right.
But yeah, so the iMac.
Yeah, as much as people, I know a lot of people on our board, they hate Apple, blah, blah, blah.
You don't have to like them.
They were very good at this, getting the people who fell through the cracks. Like getting them
a populist approach, right?
Yeah,
it was
getting the masses of like the not technically understanding, to start to use these devices and not be handicapped in the workplace or whatever. This was a good thing. This was progress.
It was. Windows 98 obviously came out in 98.
Right.
We talked a bit about it. The second edition was better.
The first one sucked.
The first one was
it was horrible. Like, it was terrible. It just, nothing worked.
Yeah,
they like rushed out that second. I feel like second edition came out in 98.
I don't know if it might have been 99. I don't remember. But it was
like
quick.
So fast.
It was quick.
They were like, we fucked up.
Yeah, we're sorry.
It got to the point where it was like hard to find a computer that didn't have the SE logo at the beginning.
Right. Well, mine had the SE.
Yeah.
Because for the same reason you just said, I know that the first one
worked. Like, it was terrible.
Second edition came out about a year after the first one, but that's still quick. And then another thing that came out was Intel's Celeron processor.
Yeah, wow, the Celeron. Wow, we're in this, not the Pentium.
Not the Pentium, the Celeron, which was a big deal because it was the cheaper.
Low cost.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think a lot of what was going on in computing in 98 is it was like we were hitting a mass market point.
Right.
And that's why something like the iMac came out, and like things were coming down in price and people could afford them, right?
Yeah, I think so. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
MP3s were also picking up a lot of steam as a viable format. Again, Napster didn't exist yet, but...
And also Apple would also capitalize on this later.
That, 100%. I think a lot of people here in the United States anyway remember the, and I don't want to talk about it in detail in case we ever do an episode, but the Monica Lewinsky scandal permeated the news throughout 1998.
Pretty much the main story.
Yeah, it was like the OJ trial of 1998.
I did not have sexual relations with that woman. These allegations are false.
This that really kept it in the news was not only the college intern aspect with the leader of the free world.
Yeah.
The fact that he also got impeached at the end of the year for perjury.
Because so there's the infamous they said like he lied about his affair
exactly
in a thing, and they're like, you can't lie on the stand or what, like, and it was this whole fucking thing.
Yeah, so this just dominated the news. I got sick of it, but it was like when it first broke, which I believe was January. It was like pretty early on. It was all over the place. Like,
if you need some spoilers for this, ultimately the Congress decided it wasn't. They impeached him, but they didn't convict him in the Senate. They were like, "This is okay."
Okay, enough already, right? There was the Winter Olympics in Nagano, Japan. Remember that? February of '98. We were over there. Viagra was approved by the FDA, so
that would become a bigger thing in the early 2000s. Yeah, I mean, a bazillion Viagra commercials. Right, this was the hottest shit, Joe.
This is
old men could get boners again.
Hell yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Shooting Puel.
I mean, that was what they were. That's literally what they were advertising.
That's the elevator pitch.
They didn't say it in that way. They would always show like smiling older gentlemen. Like
they had to be so.
Like, my life is better now, or whatever. Like,
so discreet in the commercials. It's like.
I literally had to ask my parents what this did because it was on so much, and I was like, I don't like. What is this medicine? Like, what does it do?
What did they tell you?
I don't remember. But like, I finally figured out what it did.
Okay.
But
maybe we can.
I think I laughed once I found out what it did. But the way they advertised it was on so much that I'm sure there was other children across America like, what is this about? Like, why are they always showing this?
I don't know how I found out what it was, but I found out pretty quickly. And one more thing I just wanted to mention, because everything ultimately leads back to wrestling, Quinn, is Jesse the Body Ventura became the governor of Minnesota.
Yeah, that was weird.
1998. I'm the governor. I didn't mean to win. Yeah. Or whatever. So. Okay, that was, like Quinn said earlier, a sampling of some of the big pop culture elements of 1998. by no means was it meant to be all-encompassing. That's not what we did. We don't generally try to encompass all.
And I'm sure if we missed a movie, TV show, game,
a lot of songs.
Sorry.
The whole point is we wanted to share what was hot, what we remembered, and give you guys the chance to let us know what you remember from 98. And ultimately, though, I want to try to get a collective answer between you and me, Quinn, and our group. Is it a certain age? You and I were both 12 in 1998. I turned 13 in 1998. Is it an age thing, though? But I don't know if it is, because I have affinities for other years.
You
at
can
other
really only
ages.
know that if you start collectively like figuring out how many like notable things happened in every year. And then you can scientifically say this was the best or whatever.
That's like an endeavor I don't wish to undertake. But I have affinity for years when I was in my late 20s, so it can't just be like a coming of age nostalgia.
I think that 98 is like it's a convergence point in the 90s, and I think there in the future maybe there'll be a 94. I think 94 is like the 90s had a lot, like 2 years that were like truly representative of like what they were.
I think that's
like
fair.
Time capsules of what they were.
I
whatever.
think that's fair. Yeah. 94 is the other one.
Yeah, I would gather that almost every decade has an early year and a later year that are like that kind of like time capsule what they are.
I think you're right. And that's kind of what we wanted to get to here at the end is let us know, folks, what you remember of 1998. Is it just us? Or was 1998 such a great year for the various media that we've talked about here, whether it's music or movies or television or video games or film? And what other year? Because I know there's people that are listening that were our age in 1998, but there's people listening that were 25. How did that hit you? If you were, in your mid 20s in 1998,
was it recognizable as a good year or not?
Or we have people listening that were probably 8 in 1998 or 9.
Yeah, and sometimes also like personal stuff can affect your outlook on a year, but at the same time, it's like, can you look back and objectively look at the pop culture?
There you go.
Even if it was a bad year for you, was it a good year for pop culture? Right?
Exactly right. And we hope this was a good time for you here on Ask Wash Memories. Like we said at the top, we will be back next week, so don't worry. Okay, we're gonna be there. But we really do appreciate you guys. We're gonna be doing a bunch of fun, different episodes. I think this year. Maybe not every single week, like we said.
Yeah,
but
just more casual.
More casual. We have episodes lined up for you. We have the next 2 already planned out. We already talked about them. So anyway, until the next time, why don't you follow us on Twitter at AWM Podcast. Join our Facebook group. Let us know what you think of 1998 and how old you were at the time and what it meant to you. If any, it might have been jack shit, to some of these people. But thank you guys so much. Until next time, for something completely different, my name is Joe Morata. That is Michael Quinn, and we'll see you next week for more Ask Wash Memories.
See ya.
Like what you heard? Be sure to leave a review and subscribe on your favorite podcast app. We will see you next week.